Stand by. Here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday, May 21st, 2020, and this is your Dracut Connection. Good evening and welcome to the show. We are coming to you live via Zoom. And tonight, we have a great show lineup for you. I'm your host for this evening, John Zimini, former selectman. And the Dracut Connection is a political talk show aimed at keeping voters and taxpayers in Dracut informed on what is happening both politically and civically in the town. Tonight, you can join us by coming on to Zoom if you'd like. We'll put that up later on, the address if you want to join us. We have Facebook streaming. We're also streaming live on the internet via DATV and on Comcast channel number 8. Before we get into the agenda, let me introduce the panel besides myself. One thing I do want to say is today is my youngest daughter, Casey's birthday, 26th birthday. I get a pay raise today because she comes off my insurance.
You cheap bastard.
I'm joined tonight by political activists, community activists, and union boss, co-host George Bogue. How are you, George?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing just marvelous. We're also joined tonight by the chairman of the selection committee for the town manager, as well as community activist candidate for Dracut Selectman Philip Tebow. Hi, Phil. How are you?
Hi. Glad to be here.
It's awesome to have you. And last, but by no means least, the man, the myth, the legend, the mountain man, Brian Bond.
Hey, it's always a pleasure to be here, and I'm getting a little disappointed because it's been a little quiet in Dracut. I think we need to steer things up and whack a few people that need a good whacking. So maybe we can get into that later.
Oh, absolutely, we got to get into a couple things. But before we get into the busy agenda that we have for tonight, we have our resident weatherman, Sean Kelly of Mill City Weather. Take it away, Sean.
Hi guys, thanks for having me tonight on the Dracut Connection. I just wanted to talk about that windstorm that we got last week. I'm sure a lot of us remember this one. This was last Friday, and we were under a tornado watch. And we did have a microburst confirmed by the National Weather Service in Boston. This one was in Pepperell, but there was a lot of damage all the way from Townsend all the way up into Chelmsford and all the way up into Andover too. So a lot of damage in the area, especially on Pawtucket Boulevard, as we saw last week. Estimated winds for this one, 100 miles an hour, so that could definitely do a lot of tree damage. What's interesting too with the microburst is it's kind of hard to see right here, but we tried to make something. And as you can see, you have a lot of the wind from the mid-level, and that comes down into the surface, and as it does, it pushes its way out, known as the downburst. And with those winds, up to 100 miles an hour, that could definitely do a lot of damage. And the trees, though, you'll probably notice too, a lot of the trees are in the same direction, and when that happens, you get the straight line wind damage. If it was a tornado, you'd see more twisting within the trees, and we did not see that this time around. So it is confirmed to be a microburst in Pepperell from last Friday. And if you're suffering from allergies, a lot of us are suffering right now. We do have, look here, this one is from Friday all the way up into next Tuesday. And as you notice, severe levels right now, thanks to the dry air that we have in place right now. Oak, Burke, and ash being the high ones right now for the tree pollen counts. The UV index for tomorrow is going to be a 9, so it's going to take anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes to burn. So keep that in mind if you're going to be out on Friday. Use a sunblock, of course. Here's a look at your Memorial Day weekend forecast. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday looking nice. Could be a spot shower or two on Saturday, Boston South. But that's really about it. Sunday and Monday being nice days. For the forecast for tonight, dropping down to about 51 degrees, staying clear, winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. As we head into your Friday, it's going to warm up a bit, 84 degrees for high temp, very warm, and not as bad as last week, so it won't be as humid as last week, but it will be a nice day overall, 84 degrees for high temp, winds not that bad either, 5 to 10 miles an hour. As we head into your Friday night, we're going to drop down to about 50 degrees, becoming mostly clear, winds not that bad either, 5 to 10 miles an hour. As we enter your Saturday, again, a nice day overall, 69 degrees for a high temp. Could be a spot shower, Boston South, but that's really about it. As we enter your Saturday night, you're going to drop down to around 44 degrees, becoming clear, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Here's a look at your exclusive 8-day forecast. Friday, a warm day, 84 degrees. Memorial Day right now is looking nice, 70 degrees for a high temp. As we head into next weekend, we are going to warm it up again, and temps are going to be near 80 degrees, if not a little bit warmer, as we enter next weekend. And that's it for now, everybody. Back to you guys in the studio.
Hey, Sean, thank you very much for that great weather report. This weekend, Memorial Day weekend, is going to be a great weekend, folks. And we hope that we'll all be able to maybe get out and get some fresh air and a little bit of vitamin D. So now we're going to get into talking a little bit about the COVID China virus. Gordy Scott, who normally gives our report, get called away on a conference call for work. So he's tied up. If he can join us, he will. But at this point, we're just going to jump right into it. Ryan, you have some charts you're going to throw up for us?
Yeah, I do, John. And for the folks at home, Gordy Scott is one of those guys who gets hauled into the bunker when something kind of crazy is going on in the government. And so just be aware of something might be happening right now. So, John, I'm going to throw this up on the screen, and they can scroll down. You let me know where you can proceed. We can talk about Massachusetts a little bit and where we're at. You know what I'm saying?
Can you
There
give
you
us
go.
some of the numbers? Because I can't read that screen too well from here.
All right. So I could take it away, John. So if you look at the county, right? So the rate per 100,000 folks confirmed case of we're up here in Middlesex County. We've got like 554 to 1,224 confirmed cases, right? Daily and cumulative hospitalizations, we're way down. I mean, if you look at this chart right here, I mean, we peaked at 931, and we're at the other end. Now, John, you probably don't want me giving the report because I hate to say it, I've been bitching that we need to get back to work. You know, we need the community to open up. Governor Faker is like out of control. You know, he's trying to be a bleeding heart liberal, and he needs to loosen up. Daily deaths, we're down to 50 in the state, and it's going to keep dropping because the less folks are getting the COVID. You know, so confirmed cases by age group. Again, John, it's those folks in your age group, that 80 plus, that are getting this. Again, rate confirmed cases by age group again. So hospitalization, it's all you old folks, John. You need to shelter in place. The rest of us host here, we can certainly get out and about and be safe and be considerate, but we can maneuver. The death rate, right? Again, look at the death rate. You got folks in their 70s and their 80s, right? Even if they're 60 to 69, it's down there pretty low. So, it's, not bad. Middlesex County, our numbers are up high, but we've got a large county. We've got a lot of folks in this county, you know what I mean? So on the left-hand scale, unfortunately, we don't have the Dracut numbers.
I have the numbers, Ryan.
You've got them, John?
I do.
All right, you're a good man. So, and John, I'm going to stop this share, but I did hear that they're actually ripping down two of the temp hospitals that they have put up in the state. So it's time to get back to work. It's time to get the folks, those that need to shelter in place, let them shelter in place. The rest of the folks, let's get back to work. Let's open up this economy and let's get the ball rolling again. You know what I mean? Take it away, kid.
I think you're right, Brian. I think you're right. Most of the deaths, I mean, the last report when we had Gordy on, I don't know if it's changed, there were only 4 deaths of people who did not have underlying, complications within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I think that the below 60 number, below the age of 60 is like astonishing how many people, that's across the country. It's really like under 1,000 that people have died who are below under 60. Anybody else have anything you want to say about this Massachusetts or national numbers, Phil or George?
Well, I mean, we went over 6,000, but like you say, we're on that downward slope. One of the hospitals, those temporary hospitals is closing, is the one over at UMass Lowell. I don't know if they even had anyone going in there. But I agree with Brian that, we really got to get things starting to open. I mean, New Hampshire's already starting to open. So, we're going to be losing business to them more than usual going forward. But you're starting to see, like there's a gym owner out by Worcester. He opened up, the town's fining him $300 a day. And he set up a GoFundMe page. He's already got thousands of dollars. So, it just seems like you're probably going to see more and more places do that. I know one of the police chiefs, I think it's in Central Mass again, he said he's just not going to enforce it. Baker hasn't been seen since Monday, so he's probably still hiding under his desk. But, somebody's got to get the ball rolling. And I think what you're going to see is just more of this civil disobedience as people decide, I'm just going to open and do what you will.
West Boylston Police Chief is the one I believe you're referring to, George. He said that he's not able to enforce the unconstitutional rules that, there's no law. They're not breaking any law, and there's it's not unconstitutional what he believes as the governor has done. So, Phil, what do you?
Well, I think to the higher numbers in Middlesex County that Brian was referring to, Cambridge is within Middlesex County, so I think that essentially those numbers. I mean, I think there were, the pharmaceutical companies that were, I forget which company it was that was hosting that meeting back in, February?
Biogen.
Where the outbreak essentially started out. Well, one of those companies was a Cambridge company, I believe. So I'm not surprised that the numbers are that high for Middlesex County altogether. But when you start getting into the range in Billerica and Lowell and Dracut, certainly you see those numbers fall off very quickly.
Yeah, Biogen, you're right. George mentioned that Biogen was the one that held that conference early on and had spread that pretty quickly. But you're right, Cambridge is a densely populated area, and there was probably a lot between Somerville, who's also in Middlesex County. They're one of the top 10 in the state to have high numbers of cases. In Dracut, we had 8 new cases reported today. It's for a total of 443. We have 15 recoveries for a total of 280 that have fully recovered. Today, unfortunately, we had another death. So now we have 2 deaths in Dracut. It's unfortunate. I've also heard a report, and maybe somebody else can chime in, just give me a hand signal or something. I've heard a report that 2 members of the police department dispatchers had tested positive for COVID, the China virus, and therefore a lot of the dispatchers had been put on a 14-day watch list, and some of the calls, or most of the calls over the last few days have been rerouted through Methuen. Has anybody else heard that?
Yeah, I saw that on Facebook. I think Russ Taylor posted it.
Yep. That's a shame that we have to go to Methuen. What say you, Brian?
Well, it is. I thought we were in that regional call center. We're not there yet, or what's the status with that?
I don't believe that's coming online until July, because with the epidemic and such, they wanted some additional time to figure out some of the logistics and the like. So yeah, so that'll, I believe it was July 1st they were scheduled it at this point.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully there'll never be any, overruns or, extensions on that. You can always take those estimates and take them right to the bank.
Well, I think originally it was supposed to be online in April, and it essentially got pushed back. I think because the executive director of the facility wanted to have a little more time.
And rightfully so, yeah. Anyways, folks, that's about it for our COVID China virus report for tonight. Hopefully, as Brian said, we are heading in the right direction. We'll get to talk a little bit about Charlie Baker when we get to the national and state segment later on this evening. George, I'm sure you've got a couple of bombs you'd like to toss his way.
Well, John, if I could jump in with one question to George regarding the COVID. He had posted on his Facebook page about Blinded Me with Science being the perfect theme song for this. And I thought the Pink Floyd song Mother would be more appropriate.
I mean, that's a good one. But again, it's just, all the people that are in the lockdown for everything, all they say is science, based on science.
Yeah, but isn't it true that you, like putting 10 lawyers in a room, you put 10 doctors in a room, you can get 10 different opinions, right?
Well, yeah, but, it isn't even the doctors that are saying this. I mean, it's like, was it the mayor of Los Angeles said, if you're at the beach, you can walk on the wet sand, but not the dry sand. So I'm interested what scientific explanation why that's so.
Well, let's be happy that the scientists are kind of running the roost right now, right? But the scientists don't really care about the economy, right? They don't care about, they just want to, how can we cure this thing? What's the best method of curing it, right? So that method is to make sure everybody stays in a rat trap and doesn't go out, right? Well, the economist, if you ask an economist, what's the best way to overcome this huge deficit that we just put ourselves into? $33 million people laid off in the economy taking a nosedive. What's the best cure for that? He's going to say, get everybody back to work. And thank God we have President Trump sitting in the Oval Office that's putting a balance on this and pushing the folks to get back to work. The unfortunate thing is that it's election season and everybody is sitting there like Marty Walsh and Baker, and they're thinking that they can, show all their liberal blows that they can shelter in place, and they want to hide and crawl into a hole, and that's bull.
Okay, that's great commentary. We'll get into that more in about 10 minutes. Want to talk about the manager's contract for a couple of minutes. As we know, Ann Vandal was appointed a couple of weeks ago as the political appointment as manager of the town, and she was given a contract. And the contract, there were some questions on. I know that Tammy Dristolaris, Selectman Tammy Dristolaris, brought up a couple of points on it, and we'll go through some of it. The pay rate is $175,000 a year. That took Jim Duggan 5 years to get to that. She's going to get 25 paid vacation days each year that have to be used within a year, or she can buy back 15 of those days a year. But the selectmen can also waive that at any time and let her carry those 25 over to another time. They can just do that automatically. That's right in the contract. The town will also give her 15 sick days a year carried over and accumulated without any cap whatsoever from year to year. And those sick days that aren't used at the end of the contract can be or will be bought back at the rate of pay that she's making at that particular time. The contract is for a 2-year term. By the way, there's not supposed to be a term. We'll get into that. I'm sure Phil would love to talk about that. She can, she's got 1,500 hours of accrued sick time that's going to be frozen and paid at the rate of her last position. And just one or two more things here. Her review won't be until October of 2021. So who wants to shout out on this first one? I'm going to go right to Phil on this one because I know Phil was sitting on that committee, and I'm sure as a candidate, he has a couple of things he wants to say. Go, Phil.
I suppose let me start with the last item, essentially the review. I'm certainly not in favor of essentially setting it out so it's 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through essentially the term that the selectmen have set. I think that needs to be done much sooner. One big reason for choosing Ann that they gave is that she was essentially a known commodity. Everybody knows how she worked. She's very well received. Putting off a review for that long, I'm not sure what that serves other than it just essentially lets her escape. I think it should be done, if not this coming October, then perhaps certainly before the end of the year, December, maybe as far into maybe January, but I think it needs to be done much sooner than a year from October. As we come out of this, the pandemic, and we're trying to reorganize and restart a lot of the businesses in Dracut, I think that alone is a reason to have a review with her to set priorities and make sure that we're all on the same page. And when I say we're all on the same page, I mean that she's on the same page as the selectmen, because she is the employee of the selectmen. So it's not a matter of the town manager giving the selectmen direction. It's the other way around.
Well, yeah, that sometimes has been lost in a whole mix here.
And that's been mentioned a couple of times. If I'm still lucky to get elected, will I be able to work with Ann? And I mean, I can work with anybody, but the thing that most people forget is that she's the employee. So yeah, I mean, I can work with her, but she's got to work with me too.
Correct. I know you have a real niche for this type of stuff, the salaries and the high paid salaries and all that stuff. What say you on this issue?
That really has to be taken a look at because everything is on a fairly tight budget, as we know. Jim got that high of a salary because he had a lot of the qualities that the Board of Selectmen were looking for, and in particular, economic development. And you can see within the 6-year period that he was here, just on the corner of Loon Hill Road in Broadway, he brought approximately $70 million worth of investment into Dracut. On Bridge Street, there's another assisted living going there. That's a $20 million investment. So I mean, he had the ability to bring in a number of things. So I mean, that needs to be matched. I mean, if she's getting a salary that's comparable to getting those businesses to come in, she's got to, step up and perform.
So Brian Bond, it took Duggan 5 years to get to that figure. But Brian, I mean, if you even gave Ann all of her credit for the interim time that she was manager after Pindak and after Duggan, she still didn't have as much experience as Duggan had with all of that other issues that Phil just talked about.
I've got to agree with Phil that, and I look at Duggan and I look at his performance, and Duggan was a little rough around the edges. He had a couple things that he didn't handle well, but he did some things very well. And I look at it as Phil talked about the revenue that he generated, he brought into this town, and that's when you reward the guy. You know what I mean? It's almost like I say, you remember that guy that used to play for the Patriots, Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady could generate touchdowns, right? So you give Tom Brady anything he wants, he earned it, he deserves it. And I say that he earned it, he deserves it, because there was a Dracut guy that we know and we like. He's actually running for office at the Housing Authority. But on our Facebook page, he had posted in a comment that Ann Vandal earned it and she deserves it. And I think that's the problem with people in the public sector. They do forget that they work for the people. The people don't work for them, right? And so, getting back to Duggan, as Phil stated, he brings in $70-80 million worth of construction future revenue. And so, what is Ann Vandal going to do to match that? And it doesn't have to be economic development, but it has to be something as grand as that. And again, I'm sure we all agree, nobody has any personal issues with Ann Vandal. She's very likable. She's a great person. I think the Board of Selectmen, the three amigos, Joe Duraco, Allison Hughes, and Jesse Forcier, they just wanted to do a favor, a political hack, the cronyism, the nepotism, and all that stuff, and they set her up with a cushy job and a cushy retirement and all those bennies, and that's what's wrong with the public sector today. Most of the folks that work for the town of Dracut are well respected and good folks, and they earn their money, they earn their salaries, but this kind of stuff gives them a black eye, all of them, and it's disgusting.
Well, this is very typical. Of course, this was always Joe Duraco's end game, was to get Ann that position. So again, he gave the former manager, Dennis Pindak, a 27% pay raise and enticed him to stay an extra 18 months so that he could pad the retirement even more and go out the door with almost $500,000 in bennies. This contract, which might as well have been written by Joe Duraco, it is going to do the same for Ann. And I don't blame Ann for taking it. I mean, that's what she's going to do what she can do. And we're going to get into a contract later on that'll even stir up some more excitement in you. But I see George is all bent out of shape over here. Let's see what he thinks about
after Dennis Pindak left. I remember he got a big payout on the sick time. I thought they'd done something to limit sick time payout when people leave. Did they not?
Not for Ann Vandal, they didn't.
So I just did
not in this contract.
First off, 5 weeks vacation is really good. I know at BU, if you've been there 10 years, they'll give you 4 weeks. 5 weeks, that's even better. So I just want to confirm these numbers. You said she gets 15 sick days a year for 2 years, right?
Correct.
She already has 1,500 accumulated
hours. 1,500.
Right. Okay. So I did a little quick math, which is not a strong suit, but it looks like 1,500 hours at 40 hours a week. That's 37 weeks and change. 15 sick days for 2 years. That's 30 hours. That's 30 days. So that's about another 7 and change weeks. So you look at it, almost 45 weeks. That's almost an extra year of pay when she walks away.
And if she gets an extension to the contract, which she likely will, no offense to Phil, who's sitting here, if he's lucky enough to get elected, we'll see where he stands at the time. But I'm guaranteeing that before Joe Duraco leaves, he's going to try to get that extended at least 3 years. So extend that another 3 years. So
she's going to get extended 2 more years. That's another 7 weeks. That actually brings you up to 52 weeks. That's a year. If she gets a 2-year extension, she'll get an extra year's pay when she walks away.
And George, $673.09 a day will be the pay rate for that 15 days earned under this contract. That will be the pay if she doesn't get a pay raise. I know we got storm clouds brewing in the background there. It's unbelievable the amount of gimme again in this beautiful Joe Duraco inspired contract, very similar to the former managers. I want to know, does anybody have any problem with a contract that has a term in it, but yet the charter says no term? I mean, it explicitly says no term, and it explicitly says no tenure. Phil, I mean, is that a problem that they don't follow the charter?
Yeah, I mean, I know Jim Hall, the town or the Selectmen's Council tries to explain it that it's essentially a contract for unemployment benefits, but I mean, it's just another kind of turn the phrase on it and kind of disguise it.
So
Now, Brian, when Dracut was changing the charter to help Ann get the job, they took out the part where it said that at termination, the manager gets 4 months' pay, right? They took that out, but yet Duggan got 3 months' pay, and in this contract, she's entitled to up to 4 months' pay. Again, another contrary to the charter. What do you say about that, Brian?
well, I think Jesse Forcier is the weakest chairman the town of Dracut has ever had. He keeled over and bent over the whole town. He should be ashamed of himself. It's disgusting. And you know, when you've got the inmates running the asylum, Joe Dracut, a former fire chief, and setting up his friends and family to get jobs in the town government. That's the problem with town government. And even more of a problem is that we, the voters, can't get out in force and elect folks that aren't sucking off the system already. You know, that's the problem. You know, you've got, you know, again, Joe Dracut. I mean, and like Tony, at least Tony stood up, but he's part of the system too. He's a former policeman, you know, so he kind of probably leans and bends to help those folks. When is the private sector going to finally get represented? And when are they going to start making the people that work for government work for us and not us working for them? Mr. Tebow, when's that going to happen?
Well, you gotta change who's in there.
There you go. Good answer, Phil. Good answer. So let's move on to the next subject, which is also tied to this. I've been predicting that Kathy Graham would be the assistant town manager. Now I'm hoping that because I predicted it, it gets stopped and it doesn't happen. So lo and behold, yesterday, I got, the day before yesterday, I got a little text from one of my little friends that sends me information anonymously. I know who they are, but they're going to stay anonymous in my books. Send me information about relative things. So we have a huge retirement coming up, August 21st. Brian, if you throw that up. They said to me, your prediction about Kathy Graham becoming the next assistant town manager probably isn't going to come to effect because her retirement was approved. If you go halfway down this page, Brian, maybe you can zoom in a little bit more. Kathy Graham. There she is. There she is. And she's going to be retiring on August 21st. Now, to my friend who sent me this message and wants to predict, he says my prediction isn't going to come true. It's not over till it's over. Right, Phil? Right, George?
It's a painfully learned lesson.
So, George, can't Dracut entice Kathy to stay an extra 18 months for like, I don't know, let's say like a 27% pay raise? Do you think she pull those papers back?
What was Ann Vandal making before when she was the assistant?
140 or something of that nature?
Yeah.
You right, Phil?
I believe that's correct.
140. What do you think, Brian? Will she pull those papers back and take an extra 18 months?
Of course she will. Of course she will. And they'll probably give her assistance so that she doesn't have to work as hard.
Now, John, you're more familiar with the pension system than I am. Is there like a drop dead date that like once she hits that she can't come back? Or can she like the day before pull it back?
actually, you can start. There's been times when people have started and then came off of it and went back to work. So I mean, I think they're few and far between, but I think it's right up to the day of, the day of retirement day. You can pull those papers back anytime. Yeah, it's a pretty good deal, But that brings me to the next subject. In the agenda for this week's upcoming meeting with the Board of Selectmen, there's this little baby in there, and that's the contract for Chief Bartlett. Now look at Chief Bartlett's a great guy, does a good job, does an outstanding job with the police department, but he's going to get a 1-year contract, and that contract is going to entail a $13,000 pay raise. His pay rate will go to $179,147. All right, $13,000 pay raise. Now he'll be making more than Ann Vandal. What kind of signal is that to Joe DeRocco, Brian?
Well, then it looks like we're going to have to give Ann a big raise because that's not right.
It's not fair.
Well, it's time to play leapfrog.
Now I understand there's some kind of language in I have his contract. I got it today, and I've been looking it over. I haven't had a chance to look at it over. We're getting all kinds of people on our Facebook page that are sending out mad faces and things like that. People are really upset over this thing. And I mean, $13,000 pay raise plus he's getting all kinds of he gets personal days. He gets to accrue sick leave, vacation. He gets over 28 days a year vacation, and he can buy back. The only thing is on his, I believe there's a cap on sick leave, how much he can accrue. He can only accrue up to a maximum of 80 days. That's funny. The manager gets endless, but the subordinate has a cap, which I believe that they all should have a cap.
Well, obviously, he didn't stop at Town Hall West to have a conversation before this got written up.
Didn't kiss the ring. Or the butt, one or the other. But anyways, this is a real nice contract, believe me. Real nice contract.
John, on a positive note, I think he's done a great job since he's jumped in. Our previous chief, not so much, I don't think. You know what I mean? There was a lot of issues going on there. And so I think his performance has been well. Does he deserve that kind of funds? No. But I'm glad to see that his performance is very good.
You got cut off, so I don't know if you guys mentioned this while I was in limbo. CEOs and all these people in high management, a lot of places, they're actually taking pay cuts right now. I think to give a pay raise right now is obscene. So you give them a contract, level fund them, that's fine. And the other question I have is, wasn't he kind of implicated in association in the whole procurement thing with a fence or some such thing from a company, his hometown in New Hampshire?
Brian, you want to comment on that?
I do recall hearing that, whether there was a company that was hired from his hometown. But I don't really know any details of that. Unfortunately, we will never really know what happened with the procurement, right? I think, they're going to bury all the bodies by hiring within, so nobody's going to ever investigate what really went on. Nobody's going to say anything, and we're not going to get the information because it's personnel, right? So any freedom of information request is going to fall aside. It's a shame.
Phil, wasn't there a hiring freeze put on and a pay raise freeze put on by Ann Vandal? I mean, I had mentioned this to one of the selectmen that maybe they should propose a wage freeze, and I got pushback about that it's contractual. We're under a very difficult time.
Yeah, I mean, I believe you're correct that it was even discussed during a selectman meeting. One thing with the chief's pay, I believe it's indexed because of civil service to I think it's the highest paid patrolman. It's like 2.5 times the highest paid patrolman. But I'm not sure if that sets it as a minimum area or a maximum. I would think it's more of a maximum. And in that case, if it's a maximum, then why do we need to go to the maximum?
Exactly. So,
John,
go ahead.
I'm a little concerned about the budget for this year, right? And then Phil mentioned it last week, and I've been really kind of dwelling on this. You know, where they're funding 1/12 per month until the next town meeting, and my concerns are that, you know, there's no real rush or trying to cut back now on the expenses that are going on, and you know, they're just going to go play it till the end until they run out of money. And if they don't get the money, you know, they might be at that 11th month or that 10th month and they don't have the funds, you know, and what are they going to do then? I mean, they're spending like crazy. So it's a problem, right? In my business, you know, we've been working, my guys are getting paid. I can tell you, I'm not making nearly as much money as I was per month. I mean, you can cut it, you know, way down. My monthly income has gone down, but my guys are getting paid, right? So, you know, the private sector, again, is suffering. In the public sector, they're the ones sitting at home saying, oh, shelter in place. You know, they're all getting their full cut, their full pay. Nothing changes for them. So there's no risk with them. You know, it's always gimme. You know, and we've got how many lawsuits coming? How many lawsuits we got coming, Phil?
Oh, too many. One is really too many.
And
I think we got three.
But I mean, to the essentially the budgeting. I know Ann has asked for all the different department heads to look at cutting their budgets by. I think she's asked an indexes of 5, 10, and 20%. So they'll have the information available as they go through each month and they do the 1/12 budget. I mean, it seems like a logical way of handling the budget when you don't know what the money is.
well, it is, as my experience as being on the Board of Selectmen, a 1/12 budget is essentially a level funded budget next year. And that's not a bad thing given that, you know, it exponentially goes up just by increasing by inflation with contracts, you know. And so a 1/12 budget for me is not a big deal, but you're going to pay at the end because somewhere along the line we're going to have to get the right budget in. And I think there's going to be cuts. I think there's going to be serious cuts. I think school department's going to pay.
If it's a level funded budget, now the police budget's going to have to find $13,000 cuts somewhere else.
Right. That's right.
And it's going to be services to the residents. All they're concerned about is making their own payroll and their raises.
Well, the thing that's going to happen is you watch right after the election, there'll be discussion about we need to raise more revenue. And one of the ways they're going to raise more revenue is, Phil?
They're going to propose, I suppose Ann would propose a stormwater fee.
And what else, Brian?
Well, we're going to have the Shaw tax that's coming up too, but you got a trash tax.
Trash tax. We're going to talk about the CPC thing in a minute. But yeah, that's
George Vistolaris has chimed in on Facebook asking or commenting, time for a new form of government, town council, enter the town meeting.
I fully agree with that. I think the town meeting has seen its day. As you can see, we're putting it off. We should have a town form of government that has a town council expanded, have 7 or 9 members, all elected at the same time. I like a 3-year term, and make them responsible for the budget. We're at $80 million budget, I think it is now, right, Phil?
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of things that would happen. it would take control out of one particular group. They couldn't control who they elect every year because they're 3-year elections and they can keep putting their candidates in and keep at least 3 people all the time. But if you have 7 or 9 members of that board and all elected at the same time, no group, not our group, not their group, not another group, could ever put anybody in more than one person, or could support more than one person, or you wouldn't get anybody. You know what I mean? And it's harder to make this, to get consensus when there's more people, and it makes government a lot better. Trust me, it makes government a lot
Well,
better.
it would make the town more nimble in reacting to things like, the economic devastation that we're suffering right now. We have a couple of buildings, school buildings in particular, that need new roofs. That money is allocated at town meeting. If that's pushed off, then we don't get new roofs on the school buildings for at least another year. And one is in jeopardy of losing its gym floor, which is add another $1 million to it.
So with all this stuff going on and really the need for the selectmen to really dig in, one of their items on the upcoming Board of Selectmen's meeting is summer schedule. Right? I mean,
they're on a COVID schedule.
Police, come on. Time to dig in and do your job. Get your job done and figure out something. Phil, I think you mentioned it the other day. You were talking about, they should be forming some type of a task force to get up and running. You mentioned that. Bring it up again, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody's driving around town on town property, you see these little green signs, about the size of voting signs, yard signs, and it says "Make it and Drake it." That's essentially their recovery program at the moment. So at the next town selectmen meeting, I imagine they'll vote on party balloons because who doesn't like balloons? That'll help recover the economy too.
Well, I mean, if they set up a task force, I think people might be hesitant to serve on it based on what happened to the last task force.
No doubt. I mean, that alone has just sent shockwaves through anybody who is thinking about doing volunteer work for the town or contributing in some fashion, because again, okay, we like your opinion. It just doesn't matter to us.
Well, we've invited the other candidates to come on repeatedly, right, Brian, for town?
They're on summer schedule too.
Yeah, they are.
But one thing I'd like to get into, the selectmen should be talking about, okay, the restaurants, if we're going to be in this big lockdown and they can only be at 25% occupancy and they can't be inside, well, the selectmen should be working to make sure that, their liquor license is good for outside the building too. So they can set up tents, rework the parking, that would be part of this task force. That would be working with the selectmen, working with restaurants to say, hey, we know you're at lower capacity. We're going to make sure that you can survive.
There's nothing innovative being done at this point. They were too busy getting a contract for the new manager. They haven't really done anything COVID related or China virus related. Nothing.
Like CNN.
Brian has said a number of times that they've done, the workload has been less. Right, Brian?
Yeah, they're like CNN, John. Russia. They're just concerned about taking care of their friends and family. They're not concerned about the businesses in the community, unless it's one of their businesses. And then they get everything they want whenever they want,
So, Brian, talk about CPA, the CPA tax, because that's a big issue. And is it the only question on the ballot at this point?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the only question on the ballot. And what it was is that there was a resident at town meeting who was trying to save the taxpayers a few bucks and reduce the community preservation tax because, where CPC has done a lot of great things with the community, now it's becoming a slush fund where they're trying to find stuff to spend money on. We've done a ton of good things, and it's time to give back a little bit and slow down on what we're buying and what we're purchasing and what we're taxing the folks. So at the last town meeting, a couple town meetings ago, November, Warren Shaw stood up and convinced the body, who was basically there to vote in a sports field, and he convinced the body to to put to ballot the Shaw tax, the Warren Shaw tax, which increases the community preservation by 25%. So you folks, if you're out there and you want your tax to increase by 25%, then you go and vote in favor of it. But if you're concerned about your budget and the overspending in this town, then you need to get to the polls and do two things. Number one, you need to vote against the Warren Shaw tax. The only question on the ballot, vote no. And obviously you need to vote for Phil Tebow to take the Board of Selectmen seat, because he's the guy who's going to take care of you folks. He's looking out for you.
Oh, wow.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Chris Murphy's chiming in. He's saying that the new Dracut slogan is going to be "Fake it until you make it up" in Dracut. Chris Murphy, he's a funny guy, and we'll talk a little bit about his anarchy and his tyranny issues when we get into the national politics in just a minute. I think we got to get some signs made up, Brian. Vote no on the new tax increase. Vote no, right? Just to make people know that that's on the ballot. I mean,
all right, John, you call me next week and tell me to get that done.
We'll get that. We'll get that done.
Put a little pressure on me.
Let's move on to a little bit of national politics. You know, we have so much going on, and one of the things is this COVID virus. And, you know, the president is pushing and pushing and pushing to open up the country. And he's got all 50 states at least in the mode of opening up, albeit, George, Massachusetts is going to be 12 weeks before we get to the final stage of when we're going to open up. It'll be Labor Day before we fully open up.
At the
You know,
earliest.
the thing is, this is the time people are deciding where they're going to take their vacation. So, okay, do I want to go to Maine? Do I want to go to New Hampshire? Because sure as hell not going to the Cape or the Berkshires, because I don't know if they're going to be open. Why am I going to make a reservation if I don't know if they're going to be open in July?
Or when you get there, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah. So Chris
I mean,
Murphy.
New Hampshire hotels are opening up, I think, this week. I mean, I've been thinking maybe a quick weekend in New Hampshire next month. You know, it's off the table in Mass.
Yeah. Chris Murphy says he's waiting for one person to show him, just one person, one time in human history where we have quarantined the healthy during this thing. I mean, viruses are scary. Tyranny is terrifying. That's true, Brian, right?
Yeah. I'm curious on how Florida fudged their numbers, because obviously, you know, they didn't really shut down much at all. And they've got a population very similar to New York. And the results were total opposite of New York. You
They
know,
also have an older population. That should make them more vulnerable, right?
yeah.
Now, Brian.
But the fake news isn't reporting that because it doesn't fit their narrative. You know, the hide under your desk narrative. It's ridiculous.
Now, Brian, you're going to New Hampshire in the next couple of days. You're taking on the rebel in you is just going up to New Hampshire, right? And how are you getting up there? And I mean, you got Massachusetts license plates on your car. What's going to happen? You bringing your guns with you?
Oh, I mentioned that to you the other day, that there's a lot of folks in New Hampshire that really don't want anybody from out of state coming there during the epidemic, right? They don't mind. And while I'm traveling north to go hiking, and I've been hiking probably every other day now, as I travel north, I see herds of cars driving from New Hampshire coming into Massachusetts because they don't have any jobs up there, right? And then, you know, they're pushing us away. You know, the folks that live there, they don't want us up there, but they love our revenue. They wouldn't survive without us, right? You know, and they're more concerned about themselves. I get it, you know, but, you know, I'm going this weekend. I'm going with my truck camper. I'm going to stay at a campground. Out-of-state residents can stay at campgrounds that are in the national forest. The Governor Sununu has shut down state campgrounds to out-of-state residents, but national forest, anything that's owned by the federal government, he does not control. So
Okay, Brian, quick quick analysis, 1 to 10. What do you rate Charlie Baker's handling of the COVID virus?
I'm going to give him a 3.5. I'm really disappointed in him. He's hurt.
George.
He's hurt the economy.
George, 1 to 10. Charlie Baker's handling the China virus.
I'll give him a gentleman's D plus.
Which is a number, 1 to 10.
Oh, 2.
2. Phil?
At first I'd say he was doing fairly well, and then as soon as he found out that things really weren't the way they were, he should have changed course. I would give him a gentleman's 5.
A 5. Now, ladies and gentlemen, do you know that there's a poll out that shows that 80% of the people polled in Massachusetts think that Charlie Baker's doing a tremendous job with the COVID virus? They haven't, obviously those pollsters didn't talk to anybody in the restaurant business or mom and pop shops and what have you. So.
Well, yeah, but I mean, look at who we elect in this state, right?
Exactly. Okay, now let's move on to the President of the United States. Phil, 1 to 10, President's handling of the COVID virus, China virus.
I will give him, I would give him an 8.
An 8. How about you, George?
7.
7. How about you, Brian?
I'm going to jump on with the 8, and I think that it's been much better since he's not on the news every day, because sometimes like me, we gaff a little bit here and there, you know what I mean? We like to hear it and say it, but it's not always the right thing to do.
I'm going to give him a 9. VP Biden stuck in the bunker. Quickly, give me a date. When does he come out of the bunker, George?
Labor Day?
Labor Day. Phil?
November 5th.
And Brian?
I was going to say late November, well after he's lost.
We've got 2 minutes left, and I want to quickly talk about, do you believe the polls, a yes or no question, do you believe the polls that recently came out by Quinnipiac that says that Biden, who's stuck in a bunker, who can't put sentences together, who can't stop stepping on his tongue, he's leading the president of the national polls by 11 points. Brian, do you believe those polls? Do you believe the
Do
polls?
you believe that? I don't believe that. That can't be true.
How about you, Phil?
No.
How about you, George?
I don't believe it, but if you go to Real Clear Politics, the state averages, I mean, he's almost over the edge on electoral college already. I mean,
Who's on the edge on electoral college?
Right now, Biden's ahead, but if you actually look at the state by state, they have Biden winning Florida, which I don't believe. They have Biden winning, I think, Georgia, which I don't believe. So, I think Trump's in really good shape right now because I think people lie to pollsters. They don't want to say they're going to vote for him.
George, we got to close it out. We're losing time. Brian, say goodnight.
Okay, folks, we appreciate you tuning in. And as always, stay connected.
Good night, Dracut.